In what's becoming an all too common occurrence, shots rang out across the city of Chicago this past weekend, killing 8 and wounding another 36, including a handful of children. It was a second straight weekend that at least 36 people were shot in a city some have dubbed Chiraq, in an obvious nod to the violence in Iraq. Here's how the reaction to the violence played out on the local news.
It has been an especially violent weekend in Chicago, which includes the shooting of 5 children just last night.
With all of those shootings, the one that really tugs on the heartstrings of Chicagoans is when they hear that children are hit by gunfire.
So I was standing at the corner. I'm like, no, I'm finna go home. These just some little kids finna fight. As soon as I'm walking out the gate, you hear gunshots.
If one little girl is fighting, and then if her brother or her cousin is gang affiliated, then it's that, then it's this, then it's this, then it's shooting.
And here's a visibly angry Mayor Rahm Emanuel reacting last night.
Every child in the city of Chicago deserves a childhood. Every child deserves to hear laughter.
Right.
Any child where that laughter has been replaced by the familiarity of gun violence has had their childhood taken from them. And we as adults have not done our job.
Now, Ange, he has children in the school system, and I don't question his authenticity or his true feelings there. However, Chicago, a lot of crime, a lot of deaths, a lot of gun deaths, and it's one of the hardest cities to get a handgun legally in the country.
Mm-hmm. And we just played a montage in the last segment of politicians outraged, sounding the alarm bells about global warming. I wish you would see them with the same emphasis and the same level of outrage and anger talk about issues like this, talk about the city of Chicago. It seems like every time there's a school shooting, the president will take to the podium, Eric, and he'll talk about how to take guns away on some level of people who are law-abiding citizens, instead of people in Chicago who are now outnumbering the rest of Chicagoans who aren't allowed to have guns. You're from Chicago, so you get the ground game. It's not, of course, all Rahm Emanuel's fault, but the cops are scared, they're petrified to go on and answer these calls, because the civil rights groups in Chicago go after them a lot of times in defense of a lot of these youths. Bob, it's a reality. They're very nervous. They're outnumbered. And as you said earlier, it is a war zone, and something needs to be done, because giving speeches at a podium and keeping guns out of the hands of the rest of Chicagoans who should have them isn't working.
So Bob, at one point you said, it's gangs shooting up gangs in Chicago. There are a lot of examples just this past weekend. Young kids, I believe, an 11 and a 13
who were caught in the crossfire of gangs. If you look at the picture of
it wasn't crossfire, Bob. It was someone going after 2 kids on Facebook.
Well, for the most part, the children who get killed there are getting killed in gang violence. It's probably safe to say that 90% of the murders that take place there are as a result of drugs. Chicago's become the cross part of the United States where drugs are centered. It used to be Detroit. And now, I guess the question is, I see the Justice Department belatedly now has put 22 new prosecutors in there to begin to deal with this. Los Angeles dealt with their gangs pretty well. There's not a reason, I don't think, to deal with gangs, but this is not about legal guns or illegal guns. This is about 3 or 4 warring factions that are no different than they are in Beirut.
Do you agree? Do you buy this? That's as simple as that?
I think that they're libs, not Bob, but they got to get over this notion that it is bigoted to be hard on crime. That if you're going after a criminal, you are actually targeting minorities. The fact is, in communities where there is heavy policing, the minority communities are grateful that you're there and that you're preventing bloodshed. And I always go back to the NYPDs. They've saved thousands of young minority lives over the last 2 decades of effective policing, and they've been tainted as being either called so many names because they're profiling, but the people that they're saving are minorities, and the communities are grateful. So I think Chicago is learning. It's interesting, though, they do blame the weather, and it's funny, it is true. When there is warm weather, there tends to be more crime. So that's why whenever you watch episodes of Cops, the criminal's always running around with his shirt off. Yeah,
Dana, 4th of July last year, 74 people shot, 12 killed. June 14th, 16 weekend last year, 47 people shot, 8 killed. It goes on and on. Is it time, though, to maybe relax some of their concealed carry rules in Chicago?
Possibly. I hear the sincerity from Rahm Emanuel, but I also wonder then, what is the practical solution? Because there's not a way to wave a magic wand and all the guns will go away. But also there's some sort of deeper problem of a lack of concern about another human being that is at the base of it. And so that's the really difficult one to try to
Can I
tackle.
just make one more point here? I think that the people, you say release, make the restrictions on guns less onerous on people. These deaths are not happening in middle-class black neighborhoods or white neighborhoods. It is happening among blacks against blacks. Andrew made a very good point here. The police are afraid to go in here. I think there's an answer to this, and it's gotten so bad, although last year they had the lowest violence in 50 years. I think it's time to get the National Guard and go in and just do what they used to do, which was clean it all out. Just take out whole blocks and then start to arrest these guys. There's no love lost with liberals on that. I say you do weed and seed, they call it. They go in there and they take the bad seeds out and they throw them in jail.
It's also called clear, hold, and build, which is why
clear, hold, and build.
They had the Iraq reference.
And if you look at the police blotter from last year and you look at the number of crimes, they're actually not even pursuing them. So they're arresting them, but they're not prosecuting and going after these crimes as well. So these kids aren't learning their lessons.
Who would go in? Would you go in?
I wouldn't, no way.
Can we do this very quickly?